Hello and welcome to this week's video. My name is Anuska Taylor. So great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do click that subscribe button and don't forget to give me a thumbs up and also leave me a comment or a question if you would like to underneath any of my videos. So today I am talking about straws. Yep, drinking straws and why they are so brilliant for your voice. Why, as a speaker with high demands, if you're speaking all day, doesn't matter what you're doing, presenting, lecturing, teaching, training, coaching, doesn't matter. If you're using your voice all day, you really want to start using a straw every day. And anyone that's worked with me will know exactly where this video is going. But if you haven't worked with me, then welcome to the world of straws. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing why they are so important and vital as a voice user, a little bit of the science behind why they're so brilliant. I'm going to share the different types of straws, what one you might want to work with versus another, and finally, some of the exercises you can do. So before I get into it, I was inspired to do this video because on Friday I did a live session. And by that, I mean, I was singing, and I was singing for a very long period of time. My music's quite intense. My music is quite challenging on the voice. And so whether you're singing or whether you're speaking, if there's a lot of intensity, it's a long, long day of speaking or singing, using a straw is so valuable. So I brought my little pack of straws along with me, and these are the ones that I use. This is by no means any product placement. I have no affiliation with this company at all, but these are the ones that I use. And you get, I think you get 4 different size straws in this pack, plus you get some cups. So later on in the video, I will talk more about the different types of straws and the cups and why you might use one over the other. But just to say, on Friday, whenever I'm in a situation where there's a long day of using my voice in whatever capacity, I will always take my straws with me and I will whip them out. I will literally whip them out. You can do this 30 seconds. It doesn't have to be a big deal, but it's just having them with you. So anyone that's ever sort of seen me, you know, before I go on stage, before I do anything, I will often just be sitting there using a straw because that's what I do. And for anyone that understands the importance and why they're so valuable, they'll be like, yeah, I know why she's doing that. Other people might think I'm a bit odd, but that's all good. So this is what I want to talk about today, because I just was thinking about it on Friday, and then a friend of mine contacted me yesterday and asked me about something, and I was like, you need to use a straw. So I thought, okay, this is the video for this week. So why are straws so valuable as a voice user? Well, for optimal voice use, for optimal vocal function, we want a free vibration of the vocal folds. We want a free, efficient vibration of the vocal folds. And what the straws will do is they will allow the voice to realign, rebalance, reset, recalibrate. They can also be used for rehabilitation. You can use them to warm up. You can use them to cool down. And so they really get the vocal folds into an optimal alignment. There's less impact and less collision on the vocal folds, which is what tires your voice, which is what injures your voice. If you're doing, you know, shouting or a lot of sort of heavy voice use over a long period of time. So you'll find that if you start to use the straw on a, say, daily basis, it will alleviate fatigue. You can get to the end of the day and your voice won't feel exhausted. You won't lose your voice. The voice won't be croaky. You'll wake up the next morning and your voice will still function just as well as it did the day before. It just takes a lot of the stress and the press out of the voice, which tends to happen when we are in demanding situations, either high stress situations, high impact situations, or just long days of speaking or singing. So this is really why they are so valuable, because they really allow the voice to get back to optimal function, so the vocal folds can vibrate efficiently and freely. So why do they work? Well, I'm not going to go into massive amounts of depth here because it can get quite complex, but just to very simply say, as I mentioned, the vocal folds vibrate to produce sound waves, and we've got air pressure that builds under the vocal folds. It comes up from the lungs. There's air pressure that builds under the vocal folds to set them in motion to vibrate. Now, what happens when we use a straw? So I'll just demonstrate for a minute. I'm going to go, and you use a straw to warm up, to cool down, to reset, to rebalance, whatever you're using the straw for, it's what we call a semi-occluded vocal tract exercise. It's SOVT for short. You can Google that if you want to look up other SOVT exercises. But essentially, we are creating an occlusion at the lips. And what this does is it creates a back pressure. So we've got the pressure not only coming up from under the lungs, but now we've got this back pressure coming from the lips. And what that does is it allows the vocal folds to vibrate far more freely, far more efficiently. And you can try it at the end. I'm going to take you through a few examples at the end, but try it at the end and just notice how much easier your voice feels when you use a straw. So essentially, it helps the vocal folds resist the airflow more efficiently. So they're not just having to cope with all of this pressure coming up from the lungs. There's also now this other pressure helping them to function more freely, more openly. And that's why it works so brilliantly. There's also just less collision and less force and less impact on the vocal folds when you use a straw. So it's almost like they're cushioned. So this is why it's so great if you are tired, sick, jet lagged, have a long day of speaking. So there's a lot of impact and a lot of pressure and stress being put on your voice. It's just absolutely brilliant. It's really just so therapeutic. I think that is the overall summary word for this. It's very, very therapeutic. And you can make it more therapeutic by doing other things, which I'll talk about in a moment. So that's the very basic science behind it. We are just allowing the vocal folds to function more freely and more efficiently. So let's talk about the different types of straws and also the use of cups and also water. It's a whole new world that you will never want to leave after this video. So I'm just going to show you what comes in this pack of straws, just to give you an idea. And essentially, you get 4 straws. I think these two are actually identical. So let's just look at the 3 straws. We've got 3 different size straws. So this would be perhaps your standard drinking straw. If you were to go into the supermarket and buy a pack of straws, it would probably be something like this. Although I do actually have, where's my other one? I've got so many straws of different sizes, but let's call that your drinking straw. Now, you can get metal straws now in the supermarket. It's great because you can put them in the dishwasher. So we're not, killing the planet in the process. So I highly recommend buying some metal straws. So there's that one that we'd call the drinking straw. This one is probably one that we might call the cocktail straw. If you go and have a gin and tonic or something in a bar, have the little short glass, and they'll usually put like one of these sort of thin, short straws in those drinks. So you can get them, maybe not so widely available as these ones, but they absolutely are available. I'll talk about what the difference is between them in a minute. This is essentially, I think this is the same diameter. Yep, same diameter, just it's a little bit longer. So very simply, if I was to summarize this very simply for you, the longer and wider, as in the diameter, the longer and wider the straw, the less resistance you're going to get. The less resistance is going to feel easier. The shorter and thinner the straw, the more resistance you're going to feel. Now, depending on the day, depending on what's going on for you, sometimes I find the short, thin straw just too much for me. Sometimes I have to go to a bigger, longer, thicker straw. So it really depends. But what I would suggest you do is start with the long, wider straw, the bigger diameter straw first, and then see how you go. And you can then try your sort of short cocktail straw. So this is going to give you less resistance. Just as another point as well, because female vocal folds are generally smaller than male vocal folds, they don't need as much resistance. So as a female, you may find that this is ideal for you, but you might also want to try that as well. I'm just saying what I want you to do is just try them out, play around, see what feels right. You want to feel something. So you don't want to feel like there's a lot of constriction in your throat or there's a lot of back pressure. You want it to feel relatively comfortable, but also that it's actually doing something. If you're not feeling anything, then go to a thinner straw. But don't go to a thin straw if it feels really constricted and uncomfortable, because it sort of defeats the purpose. So this is why it's quite useful to have some different length and diameter straws, because depending on how you're feeling, if you're sick, for example, if you're really fatigued, if you are recovering from something, you may find that the thin straw is just too much at this point. So play around with it. You want it to feel like it's doing something. You want to feel that back pressure, but not so much that the throat is like when you do it. And you'll know straight away. You will absolutely feel it. It will not feel good. And then we're completely defeating the purpose of this whole exercise. Now, just as another thing you can do, if you want to add to the therapeutic vibes of this, is you can actually put the straw in water. So you don't want to like dunk it right in like you're drinking the water. You just want to break the surface of the water about 1 centimeter. That's about it. I don't know whether this is not the greatest of glasses to do this, but anyway, so you just want to dip it in the water. This adds more resistance again. So it might be too much with the short straw, but with the longer straw, it might be the perfect resistance. So it gives you a little bit more. Obviously, that isn't always helpful. You're not necessarily going to have a glass of water always next to you. It may not be appropriate. Like for me on Friday, sometimes I was just using the straw when I had like 30 seconds between takes. So going to get a glass of water and putting my straw in there was not going to be very helpful. The other thing to just be aware of as well, when you're doing any of these exercises, which we're going to go through now, is make sure that your chin is horizontal to the ground. The challenge with this sometimes I see with clients that I work with is they'll bend over like this, and then you're just squashing the larynx. Again, it kind of defeats the purpose. So if you're putting a straw in water, just make sure your chin is horizontal so you're not like this and doing it. And, you know, that might make it more challenging for you. So again, just play around with it. So you want to make sure that your head is balanced on top of your shoulders are aligned over your hips. You don't want to be collapsed forward. You certainly don't want to be squishing the larynx like that. So as long as you can keep this all open, go for your life. Try the straw in water. Don't use the water, but just keep the head, the chin up. The other thing I mentioned is the cups. Now, these cups actually come with these straws, but you could just as easily get a paper cup and put a hole in it. So you don't need to go and buy this at all. As I said, this is not me trying to sell voice straws to you, but you could just get a paper cup. The great thing about this is when you're just using the straw, the lips are obviously surrounding the straw, so they're almost in that kind of ooh shape. Now that is then quite limiting if you want to actually make some sounds beyond an ooh, because that's really all you can do with the straw, which is brilliant for warm-ups. But what you might want to do is actually move your lips. Hello, my name's Aniska. Hello. So you can actually move your lips when you use a cup. So that's the great thing about it. So you could practice sort of reading, speaking, singing, whatever you want to do, but you could use the cup so you can actually move your lips. So it depends on what you want to do. But anyway, I'm just throwing the cups out there because it is really, really helpful as well to use the cups. So what do? You've got your straw, you've decided, okay, I'm going for the slightly longer, bigger diameter straw because it feels a bit easier. What do? So again, remembering posture is really important. We don't want to squish the larynx, want to keep the chin up. First of all, really just start to establish that bottom part of your voice. So we call this, say, the chest voice, the modal voice. You don't really need to worry about that. Just think about finding that comfortable place where you speak. So, you'll know when you're in this sort of chesty place in your voice because you will feel some sympathetic vibrations coming from your chest, hence chest voice. So start to establish that first of all. And just very easy. One of the things I see quite a lot when I work with private clients is they're quite sort of jagged often with the sound. So it becomes which we don't want to do. We want it very smooth and very legato, using the musical tone. When you've established that lower part of your voice, then see if you can move up into your head voice. So it will feel like it's kind of vibrating from around your head. So you'll feel almost this transfer vibration. It will feel like it's coming out of your chest, then it will feel like it's coming out of your head. The goal really with this, and what you're really just trying to do, is just get some movement through the vocal folds in the different configurations that they can be in. So the chest voice kind of configuration, and then the head voice. And we want to kind of move around, stretch them, get them moving, get them supple, get them agile. And then if that's very comfortable, if you can move very comfortably from the bottom of your voice to the top, you can also, I call it like pushing people off a cliff. You can also do the pushing people off a cliff. So make sure, again, you're feeling that sort of resonance in the head, and then you're feeling that resonance sort of almost coming out of the chest. If that's all good, and again, you can use the cup if you actually want to make some sounds, you actually want to speak. But another thing then you can do is take a very, very simple melody of a song that you like or you know, keep it really, really simple. I mean, happy birthday is great because it actually moves around quite a bit. So then you could do happy birthday through the straw. So just to give you an example, you don't have to sing happy birthday through the straw, but my point is really you could then take a very simple melody of a song that you like or you know, and that could just, again, be another way to warm your voice up, to get some fluidity, to get some movement, to get some agility through the vocal folds. And I promise you, it will make such a difference to not only how your voice sounds in that moment, but also by the end of the day, you just won't get the same level of fatigue. And the following morning, you won't feel the same level of fatigue. People are always really amazed. I mean, even on Friday, they said, oh, you're probably going to lose your voice by tomorrow. And I'm like, I won't. I mean, I never lose my voice because of voice use, because of singing. I mean, unless I'm sick, and that's completely different. But just in terms of voice use, because I will do this kind of thing all the time. And throughout a long day of using my voice, I will be using this in and out throughout the day. And if I've had a particularly big day of using my voice, singing or speaking, then I will also do some cool downs at the end. And then I know my voice is going to be absolutely fine the following day, or even that night, actually. So really and truly, it doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be 30 seconds throughout the day, 10 seconds throughout the day, but you do obviously need to have some straws around, like perhaps one in your office, one at home, one in your handbag or man bag, but just have them available so that you can use them. So let me know how you go, and if you have any questions about this, do post them below, and I will put the links below. If you want some support with this personally, you can absolutely book a trial voice session with me. I'll put the link below. If you're interested in more of this deep dive approach to your voice, you want to really understand and get your voice functioning to the highest level, you can also book a 30-minute voice discovery call, and I can have a listen to you, give you some feedback, give you some insight, and share how I can really support you moving forward. So this is just an absolutely brilliant tool. If you are a voice user of any description and you need your voice, you want to be using a straw. So thank you so much, and I will see you next week.